welcome back to my channel. It is that time of the month again where I answer your body mod questions. Every single month I do a body mod Q&A where you can ask me questions either specifically about me and my body mods or just body mod questions in general. I always pull these questions from the previous body mod Q&A's video comment section, as well as I put up a little question box over on my Instagram stories. So if you'd like to ask a question for the next body mod Q&A, leave them in the comments below or follow me on Instagram and wait for me to pop the little box up over there. So let's go ahead and get started with your questions. Also, these are always anonymous, so feel free to ask questions. I mean, obviously they're not really anonymous in the comment section of YouTube. It'll show your username, but I never actually read them on camera anymore. I used to, not anymore. When you're getting a new Pearson, how long do you wait after your previous Pearson? Do you wait for it to be fully healed before getting another? So it kind of depends on placement. Usually I wait until it's healed before I get another one. However, I am a side sleeper. So if I have a Pearson on my left ear that's still healing, I'm not gonna go ahead and get something on my right ear because I wanna be able to sleep on my right side while the one on my left side is healing. If I get a facial Pearson, that doesn't matter as much, so it really just depends on the placement. So if I'm looking at ear piercings, I definitely wait until whatever one is healing is finished being healed. But if I'm looking at another area of my body, I'll wait a little bit so my body has time to recover, even if it's not fully healed, and then go through with it. What is the best ear gauge size? Goal size was 00, but it looks small now. I want 1/2 inch. That one is really personal preference. I too thought I was gonna stop at 0 gauge and then 00 gauge. And now I'm at 1/2 inch myself. Everyone always talks about like the point of no return, which really isn't a thing. It just kind of depends on the elasticity in your body and what can snap back to. So it really just depends on your preference. What do you like the look of? Are you comfortable going past the point of no return, knowing that it may take a while to snap back if you decide you don't want it anymore? That's really a personal preference thing. Because again, right now, I think my 1/2 inch looks good. But if you had asked me when I started the stretching process, I'd be like, no way, I'll never go that big. Even though in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big. So it's a personal preference thing. How can you tell when a Pearson is healed? I'm a newbie and unsure if your tragus is healed yet. So there are a lot of things that you can kind of look for. Does it still ache at all? Does it hurt at all? Does it look red? Can you touch it and it not hurt? Have any crusties? Does it seem swollen? Does it seem okay one day and then all of a sudden will flare up? A lot of these things play into whether or not your Pearson is healed. However, there are also some Pearsons that take a while. I still have a forward helix that will be nice and smooth sailing for a bit and then all of a sudden flare back up. So it depends on a number of factors. Definitely continue to do your cleaning, but if you're noticing any of those things that I listed, it most likely is not fully healed yet. It's also one of those things where it's like, you're gonna know if it's healed. I feel like it's a gut feeling. Are you still thinking about getting your high nostrils pierced? I keep going back and forth on it. Honestly, everything has taken a pause for now as we're getting closer to my wedding, and I'm just like, everything else, just I'm not thinking about it right now. Or I think about it, but then I'm like, nope, I gotta get through this big thing first. And then I can pick back up with piercings and tattoos and stuff like that. I really like the look of them. I really like the look of high nostrils, but I'm honestly at the point where I'm like, I just want to get this one redone. Not gonna happen before the wedding at this point because I don't want to be with a Pearson bump, but you never know. Maybe next year, who knows? What do you think about UV ink tattoos? Think to add a UV ink tattoo so I glow under UV light. I think they're nifty. I think they look pretty cool when you like actually get the light on them and you can see its UV properties in play. However, I do think that because they're still so relatively new, that not a whole lot of research has been done on them yet, and I'm still kind of wary about them. They look cool, but just I'd like to see a little bit more research done on them. How and in what do you store your Pearson jewelry you're not wearing? So I have an entire video that kind of showcases the little storage unit that I use for my plugs and tunnels. I also have a very similar storage unit to just the rest of my jewelry, like septum, medusa, nostril, cartilage piercings. It's a very similar thing, not quite as big. If I can find it again, I'll insert a link into the description or into the comments, one of those two places. But they're really just like little organization, like clear organization units that I found on Amazon. I was wondering what you think of new piercers versus those who have been piercing for a long time. I'm asking because I just got my conch pierced from someone who's been piercing for about a year, and she's been giving me some advice that I haven't heard more experienced piercers give. Nothing that seems like a red flag though. Should I listen to the most experienced or most up-to-date training? That is an excellent question. You know, I'm inclined to go and say, listen to the ones that have been doing it for a while, but sometimes their information is outdated. Like, it's like they're stuck with this information and they haven't moved past it. I see that a little bit more with tattoo artists, whereas like the ones that have been doing it for a while continue to recommend Aquaphor, yet the newer ones don't really recommend Aquaphor. I haven't seen that as much with piercers, so I'd be interested to know like what specifically your piercer recommended that other ones aren't recommended. If they're a professional piercer, go ahead and listen to what they have to say. The big thing to remember is just to keep up with aftercare. What body parts would you still like to get tattooed, and what parts wouldn't you tattoo? I want my chest and my hands done so bad, even though I know that both are gonna be awful. Like, I want my feet done too, but like, I'm okay waiting for those, but I just want my hands and my chest done, especially my chest, so bad. I'm gonna be fully tattooed at some point, but if we're like thinking about like the areas that I really want done, chest is definitely number one. Parts that I wouldn't tattoo, I mean, I don't want to say that I wouldn't tattoo anything, but I don't have any desire to tattoo my butt, like the actual cheeks, if that makes sense. I don't have anything that I would want to get there. Also, that sounds miserable. How do you sit? Like, after you get it done, you just have to stand and like lay on your stomach, because I can't be a stomach sleeper. So I don't think I'd really want my butt done, but I'm not gonna say never. Are you ever going to get your navel pierced again? If so, have you heard of a float-in navel? I've heard of a float-in navel. I have come to terms with the fact that I probably will never get my navel pierced just because of the anatomy of my belly button. Because of the weight that I lost when I had weight loss surgery, I have a little bit of saggy skin, and it overhangs a little bit so that when I sit, my belly button closes. I have an entire video about how navel piercings are, you know, just like their comprehensive guide, but also they are very anatomy based piercings. I don't believe I have the anatomy for it because of how when I sit, it closes. Also, if I were to get like skin removal surgery, I still wouldn't be able to get it pierced because of how the skin is like pulled taut, and like they have to basically give me a brand new navel at that point. So I don't think I ever will, which is fine. I've come to terms with it, so it's okay. How do you protect your cartilage piercings when coloring your hair? I wish I could actually give you like step-by-step guide that I do, but I don't. I used to dye my own hair, but ever since January of this year, of 2022, I've been going to a professional. So she knows what she's doing. She knows how to protect my ears. Beforehand though, yeah, I wish I could give detailed step-by-step guide of what I did to protect my piercings, but I didn't do anything. I'm sorry. Non-binary person here, what are the most femme body mods that would help look more femme? So this is an interesting question. However, I'm not entirely sure how to answer it, mostly because I've never considered a Pearson to go toward more femme or more masculine. I just look at Pearsons, and if you want to get one, get one. Who is a tattoo artist you dream of getting inked by? So there is a tattoo shop out in Portland, Oregon that I absolutely would love to go to at some point. It's called Wonderland Tattoo, and there is an artist there by the name of Alice. I want to say that she's actually the owner of Wonderland Tattoo, and she does some incredible botanical tattoos. She also does incredible animal ones, and I am absolutely so lucky to have the tattoo artist that I currently have, who does incredible work as well. But I would love for Alice to do something for me, even if it's like a little, I don't know, rose on my shoulder or something like that. I love her work immensely and hope to plan a trip out to Portland, Oregon at some point that would include a trip to get tattooed by her. Thoughts on splitting your tongue? I think it looks cool. It is not personally for me. Also, I've watched a lot of videos of people like going through the healing and aftercare process of it. And I'm like, if I can't do a regular like tongue piercing, I can't do that. But they do look pretty cool. Cold laser therapy for Pearson's healing process. Should more research go into this? So I actually had to look up what exactly this was. And basically what cold laser therapy is, it's low intensity laser therapy that stimulates healing while using low levels of light. The technique is called cold laser therapy because the low levels of light aren't enough to heat your body's tissue. And I got that from Healthline. I have never heard of this before. I've never heard of it in regards to piercings before or healing. So I do think there's something to be said for it, just based on what exactly cold laser therapy is. I would be interested to see if it could help the healing process of a piercing. Like, now that I know what it is, I think it'd be kind of interesting to look into. How often do you take your jewelry out to clean it? Not as often as I'd care to admit. So certain piercings never come out. My doth, I never take that sucker out because I accidentally let it close up on camera one time and I had to re-pierce it on camera. That was not fun. I haven't taken it out since then. And that's been several years. Other ones though, like my helix piercings, where I know it's super easy to do, I'll do once a month. Probably should do it a little bit more often than that, but I don't. Now my lobes, especially my stretched ears, those come out every single day. Every single day I take my lobe piercings out, even the two little ones here, and clean my lobes, especially the stretched ears, just because the sebum collects on it. But for the rest of my piercings, not as often as I would care to admit. Except for my septum. My septum comes out quite a bit. Nostril, it rarely comes out. Unless I'm changing the jewelry, that's it. Would you ever get a matching tattoo or piercing with a friend? And my best friend and I absolutely have been saying for like years that we're gonna get a matching tattoo or like a best friend tattoo. We just haven't decided on what it's gonna be yet and who we're gonna ask to do it for us. A little indecisive, but we're planning it. Are there some things you can't do after Botox and fillers? So this question comes because I recently got a new round of Botox and filler in my face. That's why, if you notice, there's a little bruise on my chin. Had a little bit of filler and a little bit of Botox put there. Luckily, I don't have any bruising on my forehead where I also got some Botox. My lips are slightly bruised still from filler, but luckily the lipstick covers that up. So some things that you can't do afterwards, you can't lie down for the first few hours afterwards, especially if you get filler, because you want to make sure that it settles nicely. There's not too many like don'ts for the whole thing. Ice packs are going to be your best friend, so like once you get home from having it done, take an ice pack, wrap it in something, and just kind of hold it to wherever you got it done. And try not to like hit your face too much, if that makes sense, just because you don't realize how much you interact with your face until you get something like that done, and then you're constantly like hitting it or touching it and you're like, why? It's just because everything all of a sudden just becomes that much more noticeable. But depending on the area that you get the Botox or the filler in, like if you get filler in your lips, you can't drink with a straw for 2 weeks. There are a few things. It's out there on the internet, and depending on who you go to, they'll be sure to tell you, do this, don't do this. What is the process before getting tattoos? Artist, designs, appointments, placement. So this really depends on if you already have an idea in mind, if you have an artist in mind, if you have a rapport with an artist or something like that. Like for me, because I tend to go to the same 2 artists, they know me pretty well. I'll just be like, hey, I'm thinking of this idea and this placement. Bam, there we go. Usually you won't see design until you get to your appointment. Not too many artists will show you the design beforehand. During that time, you could be like, hey, can we change this little aspect of it? Can we leave this out? Can we add this? Can we make this bigger? Can we make this smaller? You usually can't make it too much smaller. It kind of depends. Do you have that rapport with your artist yet, or is this a brand new relationship? Have an idea in mind, have a placement in mind, give them a little bit of free rein, but also give them images that you're pulling inspiration from. It really depends on the artist too, and how their process goes. Sometimes they'll ask a consultation appointment, other times they don't necessarily need it. If I changed a piercing to a smaller gauge, would I be able to get it back to its original size? So it depends on the piercing. So if it's something that's like cartilage, the cartilage never downsizes, but the skin will grow to meet the size of jewelry currently in there. So say you're pierced at a 14 gauge, but you put 16 gauge jewelry in there. Skin will grow to the 16 gauge. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't go back up to a 14 gauge, but that does mean you're gonna need to stretch that skin. Won't need to stretch the cartilage, but you'll need to stretch the skin. Now with lobes where it's more fleshy, lips, anything like that. It's a matter of if you're pierced at a 14 gauge, go down to a 16 gauge. You're just gonna have to stretch it back to a 14 gauge because it'll heal down to a 16 gauge. So you can get back there, it's just a process. And the final question is, how do you feel about mixing styles of tattoos? So last month I answered the question of how do I feel about mixing color and black and white tattoos, or black and gray tattoos, I should say. This question is mixing styles. So like say you have realism and like neo-traditionalism or traditionalism or black and gray or anything like that. So if you have these different styles, I say do whatever you like, because I'm the same way. There are so many different styles that I like. There's some that I'm not a fan of, but then there are a lot that I am a fan of. And I say go for it. You know, you could even do something like where like one arm is neo-traditional and the other arm is black and gray. I've seen that work before too. So even if you'd rather like not patchwork, mix and match the styles, you could like dedicate areas to a specific style and then have another style in another area, something like that. I don't see anything wrong with mixing and matching styles though. It's all on your preference. But that is it for this monthly body mod Q&A. Thank you all so much who submitted questions. If you have a question for next month, again, leave them in the comments below, or follow me on Instagram. Wait for me to pop up that question box. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to go down there and hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell so YouTube will let you know when I upload next. But until next time, bye all!